song I was going with by Nina Muscuri over and over again. Thank you very much, sir. And this presentation is again inspired by my gynecological exposure. I'm married to a gynecologist who is also a professor of anatomy and genetics. So pardon me for that, since largely I am a general surgeon. I have no disclosures. And being associated with a gynecologist practicing varicocele surgery becomes commoner for a general surgeon. And it's been known as the most common surgically correctable cause of male factor infertility, provided all other things are normal, which I'll be talking about. So far, subinguinal microvascular approach is the gold standard. Laparoscopic varicocelectomy, first described by Hogard et al. In 1992 and reported in Journal of Urology, took up enthusiastically. Cochrane meta-analysis had contrarian opinion in 2005, not advocating it, and 2006 they said probably there is no benefit of doing. And then there is one study by Valencian et al. In 2006, they said after 1100 some varicocelectomies, they had abandoned doing it because of the concerns of making a purely extraperitoneal procedure a peritoneal one. So they said retroperitoneal approach is desirable, so was said by Sweeney et al. In Nature Clinics of Urology Practice. And as I said in the morning, Dr. Richard Satava was saying that it's our transmission of our finger capability to the patient's benefit. So laparoscopic surgery, endoscopic vision has taken our hands and eyes closer to the target and our minds more coordinated. So essentially it is a retroperitoneal pathology, it is a retroperitoneal approach. Other concerns, although TAPP approach provides you a view from a single entry point, it provides no additional dissection, but it always needs an additional peritoneal window for collaterals coming from the vas. And there was a concern about inguinal and subinguinal collaterals, making the subinguinal microvascular surgery approach as the gold standard. So these, apart from these, the laparoscopic approach, it inserts the peritoneal cavity, and especially on the left side, many times there are adhesions to the sigmoid colon which need to be removed, or even terminal loops of the terminal ileum. There have been reports in literature about energy-related insult and trauma to these gut loops, leading into complications which are not desirable in this kind of surgery, which is purely for fertility. And it has been associated with recurrence of up to 20 to 30% as reported in the literature. So we planned a prospective experience, not a randomized one. We selected our patients very carefully, being in practice and worried about the results. We selected best of the patients in the way that infertile couples presenting to infertility clinic with female essentially being normal on all biological parameters and living happily with her husband, and the male had subnormal semen parameters with a clinically palpable varicocele and normal hormone profile. This study has more than 27 months follow-up. We didn't use any energy sources. We used single-dose chemoprophylaxis and followed the fast-track module for return to activity, baths, commitments to family, diet and exercise within 2 days, and used paracetamol for the pain. Based upon the TEP inguinal hernia experience, I thought why not use this for varicocele. Only concern was dissecting the space, but since the deep ring is located close to the midline, we thought dissection can be limited. Initially, I did a mass ligation in few of the cases, which was criticized by all of my colleagues. Then I started preserving the testicular artery. I saw that it provides me to dissect the collaterals right from hyperretroperitoneum to the subinguinal levels. This is a small clipping. This making of pre-peritoneal space is same as we do in TEP hernia by telescopic dissection. I put 2 lateral working posts close to the margin of the rectus muscle. After identification of the inferior epigastric vessels, I just go lateral to that, try to identify the vas, which is seen clearly deviating medially and posteriorly and going into the pelvis. So the emphasis is not to catch vas by any instrument, just to keep it away from harm's way. The instrument in the left hand is a vascular grasper, supposed to be minimally traumatic. There is nothing totally atraumatic. The peritoneal reflection is identified and sweep back exposing the testicular vessels. And all these patients had a color Doppler estimation, although the selection was purely on clinical grounds, but we wanted to document it because following our ethical guidelines of the institutions. Doppler was done especially for the gubernacular veins because there was a criticism that they are not approachable from there, and I agree to that. So anything which was more than 2 millimeters on Doppler in gubernacular region was excluded from this study. The testicular artery could be easily identified by being pulsatile and more tough looking structure. So once the vas was left medially, artery was recognized, rest of the tissue was pulled away into the space created from the inguinal canal, assisted by a push and tug on the ipsilateral testes by the assistants. The structures were spread out to see that we are not including artery or even vas by any chance. Then we dissected the vessels. By this technique I found that I could push the testes into the inguinal canal, and I could pull in the cord for at least 5 centimeters into the space, as you will see in the following view. I stayed anteriorly in this vasa spermatica interna, as we call it, because lymphatics are supposed to be there in the fat which is lying posteromedially in this vasa spermatica interna. This wisdom came with experience and reading the literature. I was not aware of all this when I started it. So with increasing experience, we started dissecting the veins totally clear from the fat and the anything which looked like artery. We did not use any peroperative investigative tool to document that this is artery. We just saw that it was serpentine when we left it alone, and it was pulsatile. So this is the mass of the venous collaterals dissected out, and at least 5 centimeters of the length which has been pulled out. So as I will be showing, it includes sometimes collaterals from the vein to the vas, many parallel collaterals from the inguinal ligament, and many collaterals from the cremasteric tissue complex. Initially I was clipping them and cutting in between the clips. As I gained more experience of tying in narrow space, I started tying them, but I am still comfortable with clipping them. Now I use a larger clip and clip them together. So as we see the multiplicity of channels, it shows that we are dealing with a cord which is distal to at least the deep inguinal ring. This is what I felt, and this is a very small experience of 48 and all the patients had bilateral clinically palpable varicocele. So 48 varicocelectomies. I found it as difficult or as easy as a TEP inguinal hernia repair, rather easier because I had not to manipulate any mesh inside, and there was no lateral space creation. There was no bleeding which needed additional hemostatic measure, and follow-up is up to 27 months. There was no recurrence clinically as well as on Doppler estimation done at 3 months and 6 months. There was no decrease in the testicular size after the patients were candidates for the study at Doppler done at 1 year. As reported by our infertility clinic, there was significant improvement. All the fertility parameters related to the semen. More than 1/3 of the varicoceles had hydrocele. None of them required any surgical intervention or compression bandages. They all dissolved on their own within 3 months. As far as collaterals, I found them from inferior epigastric vein to vas, parallel collaterals, some collaterals from the pelvic vessels and some inguinal vessels. These are the various collaterals. As you can see, one is coming from vein to vas. So I'll finish it up now. I feel it's a good procedure, but again it's a small experience. I presented it at ELSA 2006, 7, EAES this year, says it has been accepted for publication in JLAST. But still, I keep on getting feedback from my colleagues that you don't need to dissect so much. But personally, I feel we are doing same in TEP hernia, and we are not going laterally. We are not violating the peritoneum. It's a retroperitoneal pathology. I am staying extraperitoneally. I am able to pull out the cord up to the subinguinal level. The only thing remaining is transtesticular or gubernacular vessel, which I am excluding by preoperative Doppler. And I feel if I have a flexible endoscope going through the inguinal canal, we can even close that. Thank you very much. I look forward to guidance on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Do we have time for one question? Dr. Cabot?
Thank you for a presentation. I found it very interesting. I believe you mentioned there's a significant improvement in the parameters that you used to study Laryngeal. What parameters were they? Did you look at fertility? What did you look at that showed improvement?
Thank you for asking me this question, because I thought if I include these parameters, I'll exceed time. So the infertility clinic had a semen analysis done at 3 months, 6 months and 1 year. But the primary indicator was how many of the females conceived. They had reported to us 70% conception rate, which was pretty good. And that is why I keep on getting patients from their clinic, which were initially going to my senior urologist. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
We'll now turn the session over for a multidisciplinary session, and the moderators will be Dr. John Morrison.